I want to start this podcast sharing with the Small and Gutsy family that this is a particularly tough and wonderful podcast for me to do because it's all about breast cancer, but it's about non-research services for families. And it's really an incredible organization that started on the East Coast and is now going to have an event on the West Coast. And I wanted everyone to know about it. So here goes. Getting the news I have breast cancer was one of the most devastating messages I've ever received, not only for me, but for my family. We're all affected by this disease and in ways that many people don't realize. I remember thinking I am almost the same age as my grandmother was when she died of breast cancer, and I desperately wanted to have a different outcome. Will all the progress made over the last 50 plus years make a difference in my outcome? How long will I survive? What will my life be like forever after? It's a new normal. Life will surely be different. There certainly was also the overwhelming feeling of trying to navigate the best interventions that will yield the best outcomes. Staying abreast, no pun intended, of new medical treatments, medications, and options that may just be coming available. The choices within those areas, as each one of us, even with the same diagnosis, can have entirely different treatment plans and outcomes. And how do we navigate that and figure out which is the best road for us to take? It is frankly incredibly scary, and we don't want to second guess ourselves, but we often do. For me, it was like having a second job, and one for which I didn't apply nor wanted. This is what breast cancer can feel like to so many of us. Some of us want to keep to ourselves because we don't want breast cancer to define us. We don't want people coming up to us and asking us, how are we feeling, with sympathy. Maybe if someone has empathy and has had cancer themselves, it's a different situation. But I'd love for someone to come up and say, how's work? Or how are your kids? Versus, how are you doing? How are you feeling? It's just a reminder. Although sometimes I do want that. It's a hard thing to sort of navigate, even for those of us who are in the midst of us. We want to seek out comfort from friends and family. And some of us read everything we absolutely can, which frankly can drive us completely crazy. It is simply a roller coaster with some hopeful ups and some very devastating lows. We all need to make decisions that impact our physical well-being and our emotional well-being. The weight is enormously heavy, and it's on not just us, but on our families. And to compound the fear that is behind every step on this journey are the days where we just don't feel well and wonder if we will ever feel okay again. We may not ever be able to feel like we did before cancer, but we just want to feel okay. Please don't underestimate the significance of the emotional well-being aspect of managing cancer, and that also includes for our loved ones and those who care for us. How can a disease be both individualized and shared at the same time? You'll soon find out on today's podcast featuring one woman who took her mother's stoic approach to her own cancer and built a legacy that has been life-changing and life-saving for so many others. Welcome to Small and Gutsy, our podcast featuring nonprofits and social impact organizations under $10 million. My name is Dr. Laura Witkoff, and I'm excited and proud to be your host. We hope you'll love the stories as much as we do, and perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, invest in, or donate. And for all of you followers, Small and Gutsy has just been granted nonprofit 501c3 status. We are thrilled to have moved in this direction, enabling us to continue to meet our vision of interviewing as many smaller nonprofits and social impact organizations as we can. So please pass along any valuable information you hear today to others and send me the name of any organization you'd like featured at lwitkoff@gmail.com. That's 2 T's and 2 F's. Runway4Recovery is a nonprofit organization aimed at redefining the breast cancer experience for families. They accomplish this through events and programs that strive to provide normalcy amidst the unimaginable. Their goal is to support those who survive and those who live on as legacies because they know that breast cancer never just impacts one. Specifically, with family grants, Runway funds families who have had a loved one pass away from breast cancer in order to reduce financial and logistical burdens as well as bolster families having psychological, social, and financial needs. In addition, they fund those who are living with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. Runway for Recovery is located in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and has been operating for over 17 years. It all started with one woman's dream to have her mother's legacy alive after she courageously and very quietly, outside of sharing her cancer diagnosis with her husband, battled a 10-year fight and finally succumbed while some of her children were in college and some still in high school. Olivia Achmeyer-Boger is to be commended for her bravery in honoring her mother, Candy's legacy, in being a support to others facing similar circumstances. Runway for Recovery has various events and programs to support their efforts. Some of them, and I'm sure I will miss a few, include the Runway Show. The 17th show was recently in Boston, my former residence, and it has now come to Orange County, California, near Los Angeles for a second year on January 27th, and will be raising money for local families impacted by breast cancer in that area. They also have Rally for Runway, utilizing any means of fitness to raise awareness and resources for families in need. Love Local, bringing retail into the Runway family. Run for Runway, Playing for Pink, educational programs, and legacy videos. And I'm sure I've left out a few. I am so honored to welcome 3 guests today. Olivia Achmeyer-Boger, Executive Director, who founded Runway for Recovery based on the legacy of her mother, Candy, and a beautiful legacy at that. Runway recovery model Crystal Davis, an ICU nurse helping patients and now a survivor herself. One of her goals was to be a role model for her daughter, which I have no doubt she has accomplished, and accomplished being a runway model herself. And recipient Long Tran, who lost his wife Kim and is raising his son Max. I am so very sorry for your loss, Olivia, of your mother, and Long for your wife Kim. So let's get started. Welcome, Olivia, Crystal, and Long. Olivia, do you mind starting? I know I shared a piece of your story in the intro. I don't know if there's additional things you want to share about your experience, but also how you started this, because again, I did a superficial piece on that.
No, thank you. First and foremost, thank you, Laura. That was a beautiful introduction. I think Krista Long and I could probably just leave that introduction as its own, because it was so lovely and beautifully written. And I know that this is such a personal episode for you. So thank you for having the courage to do it.
Thank you.
Runway came about when I was about 26. My mom's the 5th year of her anniversary of her passing had come and gone when I was in grad school. The town that I grew up with happened to have some really supportive and incredible community members that rallied around me, for lack of a better word, to think of a way to honor the anniversary and the kind of the time of year that she passed away. And her spirit as a mom and community member in Concord was really always focused on us as her children. So it felt really fitting in 2007 when we had our first event to think about a way to fund an aspect of the disease that had to do with kids. The community members suggested a fashion show. It was a very organic set of intentions that came with that first event, and the stores in Concord that she had loved to shop in and had great clothes, said, we'll provide the clothes. Yeah. And the bakery town did the takeaway cookies, and the country club let us have the space and the florist. It really was one of those events where I look back on it, and we tried very hard not to spend that much money. And I had found an organization, the only one I could find in the country, that was supporting kids who had lost somebody to cancer. Mm-hmm. It was any cancer at the time. Where I thought going into the event, it would be a 1-year event. I'm not even a week from the 17th show. It was the models in 2007. It was some people whose guardian had died. It was people who were in treatment. It was people who had survived. If you're sitting in the audience and you're looking at the face of somebody that you recognize, but maybe you didn't know that was part of their story, it just made it such an authentic event. I came out of the event saying, I have to keep doing that, because we have to keep having a night where all those people get to feel celebrated. Mm-hmm. Here we are 17 years later. And the people that just took to the stage, including Crystal, they were exceptional. Yeah. They showed every single face of what this disease who this disease touches. And you could not walk away last Thursday night without seeing that it's everybody.
At first, when you think about a runway event, I didn't know how to take that in because, of course, throughout my journey, I had moments where I looked in the mirror and didn't see somebody who looked like me, looking back at me,
Yeah.
feeling certainly more like myself now, but have days, as I shared before we started recording, that I feel sick. And then when I was able to watch the recorded New England event, because I couldn't be there online, I was more moved than I can tell you. And it's exactly as you describe it. Not only do I have the privilege of having you, Crystal, and Long on the podcast and actually connect with you, which you can do now online in sort of a new way, not only knowing your stories, but I agree, everybody in that room, it was palpable even through the taped show that I got to watch. And, I thought to myself, could I get up there and celebrate where I am? Because each person is at such a different point. And even though you qualify that in the video in a beautiful, just a lovely way, can I will it jinx myself? Is it still okay? Can I celebrate different milestones? And so I'm going to toss it to Crystal and then to Long because you've had that experience. And as an ICU nurse, you've certainly seen your share. And now as a survivor yourself with your own family and your own path. So I'd love to hear anything you want to share about the event, being a model, being a role model for your kids, because I love that, and you clearly are.
So several things that you said just resonated with me, first of all. As a survivor, I think that's why Runway means so much to me and a lot of the other models is you are constantly looking over your shoulder and wondering, am I going to be okay? What's this year going to bring? As my children were younger, it was so many milestones. I just want to see them to get out of, middle school, high school, college, get married. And that was one of the things I remember my aunt telling me because I was more so worried about them than I was about myself. And I remember my aunt telling me, she was like, Crystal, you're going to see your son walk down the aisle. To your point, you're always looking over your shoulder. And then the other thing that really resonated with me when I was going through my treatment is, you said it, Laura, the sense of normalcy. What did that look like? I worked through, and I don't know how I did either, but I think it was because I was fighting just to have that normalcy, and it was so important to me. Yes, it took me probably 2 to 3 hours just to get out of bed and get myself together and get there. I never really knew what that meant to feel normal.
Yeah.
But that was always my goal, like every second, every moment, why the event is so magnificent is to see some of the same people that I've been able to see over the years and, see that they were able to make it through and that they're still here and, even the people that are still continuing to battle. So that's why the runway is just such a huge celebration. And a way to remember the ones before us that didn't make it because you do have a sense of survivor's guilt. I know that I struggle with that with two friends of mine that had the same type of cancer at the same time and didn't make it. So you also struggle with that mentally, questioning, why am I still here? Why was I able to make it? I remember my oncologist at Dana-Farber, my tumor wouldn't shrink, wouldn't go anywhere after I had, 6 months of chemo, 6 months of radiation. And she just cried and she said, I failed you. That's why I feel like my role is to be here and help other people through. I had the great opportunity and as a surprise last Thursday to have the person that helped me through it, who is now battling herself and it's incurable at this point. But just to see her face and have her support and tell me that you will be alive to be able to, cook Thanksgiving dinner, So Runway means a lot to me. I never thought I would be so involved and have so many feelings and feel so heartfelt. And I can't say enough about Olivia. She's just magnificent in every way. And I'm sorry.
We
So
said at the beginning there was going to be tears.
Please don't be sorry, Crystal. Your story is still unfolding in whatever that journey, wherever that journey takes you. And I think it's actually a story of tremendous hope, even though there's huge loss along the way. I say to myself often, in a really unlucky situation, I feel incredibly lucky. And then I'll be sick, right? And then I'll feel, oh, whatever the side effects are. And so because I always know there's someone luckier and someone less lucky. And I'm just happy to wake up in the morning. And I had the same feeling you did. I had friends who, trying to be supportive, said, why don't you just take a sabbatical? Why don't you stop teaching, do this? And I knew that if I stopped, my disease would take me. It would be my definition of myself. And I think that's part of what you're saying. It's okay to cry, and it's okay to cry, tears of joy, frankly, when you get a good test result or you get something, because it's equally as emotional. And to have built, which I think Olivia, Crystal's giving you huge credit for, is you've built a community that is much more than, an organization that provides grants, which are incredibly needed. But it is a community of tremendous, I can't think of a better word other than support and hope and gifting to one another, being present with each other, which is why your friend Crystal said, we're going to be there to cook Thanksgiving. And she's in a dire situation, and that's her goal. And I'm going to have prayers for that goal to come to fruition.
I think that we've been told often that we're willing to exist in a space that a lot of people, humans, have a hard time existing in, which is this grief space. Like, we can be in both. We can be celebrating one night of the year, and we can be dealing with a legacy video 2 weeks later. We are willing to exist in that space because that is my experience. Like, my experience has been on this roller coaster of grief. So obviously Long will tell you his story, and you've already indicated, but his wife passed away, and we found each other, and we're just honored to fund the things that his wife really wanted Max to keep doing and keep having experiences with. I feel so moved after a runway show, and I also feel so moved when I see a family going to a science museum because they've worked through or they're just at a place. I don't actually think anyone's ever really done with grief. But
Long, I want to hand it off to you and for you to share what you'd like to share.
Thank you, Laura. I think the term like a roller coaster ride is definitely the experience that we all go through. I remember when Kim was sick, she'd have great days and she'd have terrible days. And there were many sort of like peaks and valleys in that roller coaster. And it's almost like you're in a haze or a fog. All the support group, the community, everything you've had kind of just dissipates and disappears. And the person you love is gone too. And you're sort of left there kind of like, well, what do I do now? And I struggled a lot the few months afterwards, just trying to get my career back, focusing on Max now, because when Kim was sick, Max was a young toddler, and we really didn't have time to kind of take care of him the way that we hoped, because we were juggling cancer and everything else. So as I was focusing on kind of the immediate things in front of me, I didn't really have the kind of foresight to think about the things coming down the line. And that's when I ran into Olivia and Runway, and it was such a wonderful introduction to the life afterwards and what that could be. Connecting with Runway and meeting with all the people in Olivia's organization, the help, the guidance, and advice that I got really helped me to step sort of out of that kind of haze and fog that I was in, and realize that my journey with cancer isn't over. That there is a community where I can contribute, and I can share what I've learned, my resilience, my joy, and kind of help others along that path, because we're all at different stages, as you mentioned, and also to find that joy back in life. That's the Runway event every year is such a wonderful celebration, and I watched it online this year, and that I could feel the energy coming through. the fact that we can celebrate such a terrible thing that happened to all of us, we're still going through in different ways, and to find that community where everybody just gets it. It's a wonderful place.
Right. In some ways, Long, thank you. And again, I'm so sorry for your loss. But you mentioned so many amazing things. I think that with any loss, and particularly this one, you go through so many steps of trying to deal with the disease that you don't have time to think of anything else. You barely had time. You couldn't really parent your toddler in the way that you had imagined, as you said, which is a loss in and of itself. And then all of a sudden it's over and there's you call it a haze, but like an emptiness of what do I do now? People retreat from that, thinking that time will just make it all better and go away. And maybe there's a piece of that. There is such a void there. And I thought, okay, I'll do all the treatment, then I'll be done, and then I'll be back to my regular self again. And I'm only a year post surgery and chemo and radiation and meds. I didn't realize that then there's another infusion I have to have and other meds that are going to have side effects, and that this doesn't go away, and that I am always looking for any ache and pain, thinking, oh, where is it? Has it come back? So I think it is a new normal, and the new normal can still have ups, can still have the joys, can still have the celebratory moments, can still have the milestones that one reaches, as Crystal spoke about. I commend you, actually, all of you, for stepping into this space, because I had a reaction of wanting to run away from the space, because I didn't want it to completely define me. And I'm afraid of it in a lot of ways. And I think people can relate to that. Rather than letting the fear consume me, face it and be like, this doesn't have to fully define me. I'm here today. And I think the other word I would use that all of you have alluded to is pure acceptance of where you are in that space, in that grief space, in that voided space, in that joyful space when you've reached a milestone that you didn't think you'd get to.
We started when we were doing our family funding and making it more of the formal process that it is now, which was about 5 years ago. We decided to fund families for 12 months, kind of to your point, because I think we found that you can't make somebody process this too quickly.
Yeah.
You also, for a lot of us, a lot of the time we're finding families a couple months to a year out of a loss or, that stage 4 diagnosis, and they don't know what they need yet.
Yes.
And so being willing to kind of slow down and come in as everybody else has kind of left your life, like all the casseroles have stopped being dropped off. That's like the perfect moment for Runway to come in. And so in addition to funding, we have this amazing care team that now has 5 social workers or RNs that sit on the within the team. So I love that we exist for people to give them the amount of space that they need to figure out where those needs are. And then the other thing I would say is I think that breast cancer has this and it kind of goes into what I was just saying, but it has this very hectic, we have to find a cure.
Mm-hmm.
And there are huge organizations that are not on Small and Gutsy that are 10 million plus that are really, with the research and the resources behind them looking into that. But I think for the rest of us, we all feel, or I felt 17 years ago, well, what happens to everyone else?
Right.
The cure's didn't come in time for my mom and didn't come in time for Kim. And I think that there's a place, the same way I said for grief and joy to exist, I think there's a place for people focused on the cure and people who look out for the community, for whom that's not necessarily a focus.
Well, beautifully said. A cure everybody wants, and yet at the same time, what you offer is part of a cure. And we have folks, Long and Crystal and dozens of others who are on videos on your website attest to just that. So I want to hear a bit about the programs. We talked about the Runway event, and you're going to have another one, coming up, and you have done it yearly in the Boston area. And now it sounds like it's going to start yearly. This will be the second year for Southern California. So for all of my listeners who happen to be in the LA, Orange County, Southern California region, reach out to Runway4Recovery to either be a model, support, donate, sponsor, any of that. I really am excited about you bringing it to this coast because it's a needed service.
Have we convinced you to model?
Yeah, I'm on the fence, but after hearing Crystal, I think I may do it. I may need a little convincing.
Do it, Laura. Do it.
Um,
Do it.
Or you have to help me with I've never spent a dime on advertising.
I
You have to
promise.
help me. I don't spend money on advertising for models. They find me.
That is why Small and Gutsy exists. I'm going to
Okay,
help you.
great.
I promise you. So what are some of the other programs? I did mention a few because I looked at your fabulous website. But I'd love for you to talk about them because there may be folks out there who would like to contribute in different ways.
Yeah, so Crystal has helped me with our rally event programs, which are on the West Coast already. They kind of follow the runway show, but wellness studios of any type will host a workout class, either free of charge so that everyone in the community can come together and hear about runway, or at a really discounted ticket price. So they're smaller fundraisers, but we always say that and Long, I don't know if this was the case for Kim. I don't know if you and I have ever talked about her working out, but for a lot of people, once they've been through treatment, there's a milestone that they're trying to get back to where they feel like their bodies can do what they need to do. I know hers came very quickly, but that has been one of the things that we've really wanted to focus on. And we also feel like if you are attuned with what's going on in your body and you're aware of it, then you might also be the self-discovery. That's a wonderful thing when the wellness studios are like, yes, we've had somebody in our community just go through chemo and her goal was to get back to spin class. We'd love to host a fundraiser for you.
Beautiful.
So those are rally events and those can happen anywhere in the country. We send you everything you need.
That's great.
The legacy videos are a tough day at Runway. They're videos that we help stage 4 Guardians put together, and they can be anywhere from half an hour to 2 hours. We have a film crew in New England who will go and do them in person, but they've also been able to, because of the pandemic, figured out how to do them via Zoom. We have this wonderful woman who's a psychiatrist and deals a lot with bereavement counseling, especially with kids, kind of help make the goals for that video. It takes a very specific type of person who wants to make one of these movies. I always say my mom would never have made one, and yet I would have loved to hear her voice right now and seen a video from her. So I can understand both sides, but if for somebody who would like to make something, they're beautiful videos. We have 2 very heroic mothers left ones for their kids and asked that we use them on our website. So people
I watch them and they are hard to watch. They're just beautiful and amazing. And I admire both of them for doing that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And the one soundbite I guess I would put out on the legacy film, because I never can say this without sounding intrusive to somebody's life, but if you are at a place where you're feeling okay and you look the way your kids will remember you, that's a really good time to make one. Of course you can, we worked with women kind of more towards the end, but just from a strength standpoint, telling stories about birthday parties, or it's all very emotional and sad, but again, we're trying to allow ourselves to exist in a space where that can be helpful to someone. Our Love Local events are our newest type of event, and they bring together like the centers of towns, and the stores stay open and give a percentage back. And what we do is we love on a local community member who shares their story. And usually that community member is then modeling in one of our shows.
That's great.
So they're literally just holding space for a story. And we've had people who are BRCA positive talk about what that feels like to them and why they chose to get testing done because a mother or a sister was diagnosed. We've had people talk about what it's like to have little kids and be in treatment. And we've had people talk about losing their mom to the disease, and why the local community was really helpful in bringing them through that moment. So our Boston event and our and our SoCal event are getting so big that it feels like 100 stories on the runway, and the Love Locals are able to focus on, 1 or 2 stories, 2 or 3 stories. And then the last thing that we offer that the SoCal models have been invited to, but we really need to find a place in the middle. We have this recovery retreat. So the runway show is very public and high energy and intense music and hair and makeup and glam and all these wonderful things. The recovery retreat happens in the spring out on the East Coast. And it's a 2-night retreat, and it includes yoga and facials and meditation and moments to connect. It's complimentary to anybody who's been a model. And it's a chance for people to recover and to connect with one another who have had the same like any, models, as you've said many times, are a lot of different ways breast cancer has impacted them, and any of those can come to the retreat. It's a smaller event. It's, we can only fit 40 models, but it's meant to just provide connection that you might not be able to make backstage of the hair and makeup.
Well, it's more intimate, certainly more intimate in a certain way. Yeah. And it's recovery. It's exactly what you said it was.
Olivia, don't forget the family gatherings too.
And the family gatherings. Thank you, Long.
Yes.
While you're here. The family gatherings have recently started. Yes, we decided that bringing the families who have been funded together is a really important step for all of us, and a piece of our journey, regardless of where they are in our funding. So we've done a beach one, and we've done a blueberry picking, and next year we'll do an apple picking, and they're really beautiful, lovely ways for us to have everybody connect with one another. Thank you, Long, for reminding me. Really important.
And then there was another video I saw that was just lovely, of a young adolescent boy who had lost his mother, and he did Playing for Pink. Am I getting that wrong or right?
I'm sorry, I forgot that one as well. Sorry, it's October 31st. My brain is mush.
Yeah, it's okay.
Playing for Pink, our second most exciting type of event. Yes. So we've had, oh my gosh, I think we're up to 55 different teams or programs. They're all over the country. And biggest thing with the Playing for Pink is, why are you wearing pink? So I've spoken in front of thousands of kids at this point. I keep going to these schools and like going to their all school meeting, and they're all in their auditorium seats. And I think that in October, you throw pink everywhere and you hope that people get it. And what I do, or a member of the Runway team does with the teams and the schools, is we tell stories of people who we've helped or people who have modeled. We show some of our videos, and we really bring it home that, if you're going to put on pink for a game, this is how breast cancer can impact somebody today. And this is how a donation can make a difference today. The students who are taking this on and coming up with their fundraising ideas and designing their t-shirts, we send socks, but then the kids kind of do everything else. It's been amazing. And they've written me so many beautiful notes about, I've been wearing pink for years and had no idea that this is what breast cancer looked like. They've been really incredible, and also can happen anywhere in the country.
It's great. So part of what this also is, or it sounds like to me, is pure education.
We had Erica's story played for most of our Playing for Pink games, and she was 16 when her mom passed away. And to hear and she spoke so beautifully about what that feels like, just like Dan did this year.
He was great.
To hear a kid your age talk about it, it allows you to really get it as a high school student sitting there. And I've been to boys' schools and now have this video to play because we use the term guardian very intentionally. You're funding a family whose dad passed away. Male breast cancer is not as prevalent as female breast cancer, but it's there. And I've been to boys' schools and I've said, if I'm the first one to tell you this and I save your life one day, then I'm going to tell you this. But you're going to want to look out for women in your life, certainly. And you're going to want to pay attention to your own body and know that this, is out there.
That's great. And you actually have a video of a family who lost their father. And I thought that was quite moving as well. Yeah. So it's so interesting that these are now across the country in different schools. And do they just learn about you and then they say, hey, I want to do this, or you'll even go out to that school? Potentially.
My voice is a little shaky. I have been to, how many did I do? Crystal, I'm looking at you. I think I did 15 this October. I did about 20 last October. I've done them virtually. If I can, I will get there in person. If I can't, I zoomed in with 1,000 kids in New Jersey. It was exhilarating. All Zoom, but you just hope that you're making an impact.
Do your kids get involved? Have they gotten involved now that you're actively sort of participating in some of these events? I noticed that they did the runway, but I wondered in other ways, do they support?
So they support as far as they're not able to physically because my daughter lives out of state. So she actually drove in that day 10 hours for the event, and my son's in college. But they're always so aware. They're always talking to their friends. They're always so mindful of, their experience, what they went through, what I went through. Um, and they're just always making people aware because they were so young when they went through that experience with me. And I was absent a lot through a lot of different milestones, events, as I was just too sick at that particular time to even get myself together, even as well as I didn't want people to know I was sick. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. And I was always so cognizant
Right.
of their friends and, do I wear a wig this time? Do I wear a scarf? My children are just very grateful and Long. I know the support that you got had to be magnificent because I didn't realize until after the fact mentally what my children went through. Olivia, I can't thank you enough. You just have no clue. You have no idea. The work that you do has just touched so many people and improved everybody's life. And it's just so wonderful to see you grow and give of yourself and be so selfless after the loss that you've had. I just can't thank you enough.
I love that. And I love that your kids can now reflect a bit and still be engaged in a way that supports their own experience in a way and move forward with that. And I think that then being able to relate to Long's son, Max, in a way that
Absolutely.
he was able to get some support at a younger age. And, you mentioned it yourself, Long, that he really didn't have that toddler time. And so now, with a lot of support, you can carry on to a certain extent. And I think that speaks to the growth of Runway for Recovery in terms of, as you started out, Olivia, you said it was really organic initially, and it was in the town of Concord, and people came together. And then it grew from there because I think both, as Crystal and Long shared, it was a void, but also something needed that went unrecognized in terms of the need.
That saying that time heals all wounds. I've heard that shared with me a lot the last few years, and I've just sort of come to disagree with that. I don't think time heals our wounds. I really think it's intention. That's what Runway has done for all of us in our journey through cancer here is give us that kind of opportunity, that intention, that initiative to really go and heal.
I've never liked that expression because I don't quite believe it either. And so I love your reframing or reinterpretation of it. And I'm going to put that into my toolbox because it really is the intention and to recognize that you can be aware that's what you're doing. Thank you for sharing that. So towards the end of our podcast, we always have a round of quick and gutsy questions. There's no wrong answer, by the way, but they really are supposed to be fun. So we have to put on kind of our runway outfits when we think about this stuff, because it's really about sort of what comes top of head. And usually they're just we get pearls of wisdom when I ask these, and I've done it on every podcast. So you'll be no exception, but you each get an answer, and you can pass if you want to. What is at the top of your wish list for Runway for Recovery, but the answer can't be money or funding?
You want me to start?
Doesn't matter. I always let it, whatever, whoever
Crystal,
wants
you
to start.
What's at the top of your wish?
For Olivia to continue to grow this organization even bigger and better and beyond that, something that she could even imagine.
I love that. What a beautiful wish. I love that.
I think for me it would be awareness, particularly of families that have gone through a cancer loss, because it's a really confusing time, and if more people are just aware of Runway and know that it's there and the great things that Runway can do to help during that journey, I think that would really help many families in that sort of situation, because once the support network of the surrounding cancer is gone, there isn't a lot of kind of like a way to find out about anything else that could be there to help families that are going through that situation. Awareness is big.
Awareness is huge. Thank you. It's great.
I mean, my dream is both of their, the combination of both of theirs. I think any community can pull together and do the show and the funding with the auxiliary, smaller, although very mighty events behind it, because I think any community's experienced breast cancer. So knowing what we've done in New England and now Southern California, I feel really energized to do and let people in on this. It doesn't have to be a secret. Like we can show lots of communities that this can be done and why it's important to do it.
So I don't usually get an answer in these, but I'll add one because I love what you all said, is really to hope that every major city or area has a runway. And so it sounds like New England will have a kit that they can then walk other cities through. And so you're building this across the US because you're right, no one goes untouched by this disease. So if you were to think of a song that describes Runway for Recovery, what would it be?
Well, Katy Perry's Teenage Dream is our kind of iconic one, but Lady Gaga's Crystal Help Me, what is the Lady Gaga song that
I
we
know.
play almost every year? My husband looks to me and is like, one more time, Olivia.
Oh
It's here one more time. The Edge of Glory. The Edge of Glory is an amazing song for our models. Yeah, that's my answer. Crystal.
Boy, I don't know the name of it. One of the lyrics is "Celebrate good times, come on."
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, I love that.
I'm bad with names of
Celebrate.
songs.
I am too. I'm also bad. Never asked me to sing ever. I have the worst voice, but I love that song. That's great. Long, what about you?
I think for me, it would probably be "Don't Stop Believing." It's sort of an eternal song of hope.
Oh, that's awesome.
Runway is just about giving us our hope back. So
Yeah, giving the new normal hope, because I love the concept of it's a new normal. And when you stop, I had to really stop fighting the new normal, because I thought by summer I can do this, I can do that, I'll be back to myself. And the truth is I wasn't. And so now I just embrace the new normal and go, when I wake up in the morning and I feel okay, I am so grateful. I can't even tell you. And so that's what I look forward to. It sounds weird, but that's kind of that's my today. That's my today. What makes Runway for Recovery gutsy? Because you're certainly gutsy. What makes you gutsy?
I would say just to have the courage. I hear a lot of the models say just to have the courage to get out there and be okay. I mean, some people are still going through treatment. I remember a couple years ago, someone pulled off their wig just to have the courage to get up there and be there in the moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful and so true. And I think that's the underpinnings of what your organization is really about. It's courageous. Olivia or Long, what would you say?
Long, go for it.
Sure. I would say that Runway's ability to engage with all the families, they call you up and they're following up all the time, and they're trying really to get to know you as a person and your needs, and you're really part of that family. And I think that's really gutsy to kind of be in there in such an intimate way. And I think it's great.
I think we've been gutsy the whole time when we've very intentionally chosen to grow in small increments. I mean, I know it looks large when you're comparing growth over the last 5 years. We've had a very big growth moment, but we intentionally chose to fund fewer families with much bigger grants. We intentionally chose to hire a care team that reaches out to families. So that means we have to do things differently. Like we could have handed out thousands of grants and made them all really small, and we could have gotten to be well known really quickly. We could have made families upload invoices and never really had contact with them and just funded their needs. But I think it's gutsy for us to do things intentionally. I have a board that's really intentional, and I think that's gutsy. I think slowing down is gutsy, and making really formative decisions is important. And I've always said, if we can look back, if years from now I look back and think 100 or hundreds of families have been changed by Runway, the organization will feel better about that than if we say thousands have kind of gotten a little bit of relief.
Right. I love that. I think there is a difference between kind of the breadth idea or the depth idea. and you're really going with the depth, but I think it will give you the
Yeah.
breadth over time. And it has started to, and I think it's beautiful. What is something that outsiders, or maybe even a few insiders, don't know about Runway for Recovery? What's a hidden gem?
Oh, you guys probably both have really good answers because you both see things that other people don't see. I could go first, but you want to go first, Crystal?
I feel like Olivia is so intentional about diversity, and that's so important to her. And I don't think people really realize that there's a lot of, organizations that talk about it, but they're not being about it. She's very focused on it, very aware, very intentional, and it's very important. People really don't know how that's really important to her.
It's great. That is a hidden gem. I love it. So something that outsiders and maybe a few insiders don't know about Runway.
Yeah, I would echo Crystal about Runway's kind of commitment to diversity and just creating a warming, caring community, regardless of your socioeconomic class, your status, where you are in sort of that path, that journey. We're all part of that Runway family, and I think that's what is really amazing about it.
I mean, I think I'm so glad that that's something you guys are pointing out, because I want anybody from any background to feel welcome. It's just a better classroom when there's more opinions and there's more points of views and life experiences. And with this specific disease, it really does target women of color in a way that's very different. And if I wasn't intentional about it, organizations tend to attract people that look the same based on what the founder looks like. And I think that white women have to really be intentional about it. There's no other way to say it. You have to be aware of it, and you have to seek out ways to make sure that women of color are feeling supported. And Crystal has been such an amazing and patient and supportive partner to make sure that we get the right messaging out, and that we create an open space. I see my team work for so many hours, and I used to do it by myself. So it's just this labor of love that to see other people do it means that it's worth doing. But there's so many hours spent with families. I mean, so many hours. We're really trying to get the funding piece right. We're trying to figure out the sport your kid wants to play, the music class, the camp, the grocery store you need to shop at. And we don't ever need it to be publicized like that. We don't need to follow around with a video crew and show all those little things, but it's humans who want to help humans.
And the fact that you acknowledge and recognize the inequity of this disease for women of color, particularly African American women. And as I mentioned earlier, statistically, Ashkenazi Jews are another group that happen to be targeted with breast cancer. And so the fact that you've made a concerted effort with women of color is incredibly important. And I love that you brought up as an educator, because I feel this way too, and I've always felt this way. The more diverse opinions you get in the room, the better the outcome is, the better the product is, the better the whatever is, because you're hearing things from different perspectives. And so I think that is the core value of what Runway is about. I know how it started, and it's Candy's legacy, and what a beautiful legacy. But if she were sitting here on this Zoom today, not only would she be enormously proud, but my guess is, because she raised you, is she was a believer in those diverse opinions and reaching outside. And when you hear in the videos people refer to her and talk about her, she was a giver. And that's what you are too. So I love that. And thank you for bringing that up. And Crystal, thank you for eyeballing that and bringing it to the forefront. If you could get one celebrity or influencer to endorse or talk about Runway for Recovery, who might that be?
Katie Couric. Trying to go really big.
You should.
What I love about what Katie's done is talk about, I mean, we signed a bill in 2021 with the Coalition for Equity, the breast cancer. Just because of the dense breast issue and the fact that so many people weren't understanding the needs for ultrasounds. And she's just authentically talked about her story But there's so many, like I can close my eyes and think of, I would be thrilled with anybody who's had an impact of breast cancer. We've never gone to seek out a celebrity because we really want it to be organic. And there's close. I don't want to mention her name because I feel like there is a chance that she's potentially going to walk in California. But the second that there was a name that I recognized that came up, I thought, oh, this is perfect. She's a survivor. She's pulled into this by a friend. I can't just like stick a celebrity in, but you know, Katie Couric does have this wonderful platform and audience, and I would really need to staff up before we reached out to her.
Yeah, she is. I actually mentioned her on my podcast when I did the my own story, because she had just been diagnosed that summer and had gone through, and she was, as you said, very open about it. And she has continued, because I like her. She has a newsletter, Wake Up Call, I think it's called. And she always, and even this month, she revisits breast cancer. And she's obviously been impacted by other types of cancer in her family as well. But she would be a great one. It's a really great choice, and you never know. And I love the fact that you said you don't, again, it's being intentional without doing it just for the sake of doing it. There's a connection, there's a reason. And so I really respect and appreciate that, because you want it to stay focused on the meat of what you're about. And I think that's really important. So Crystal or Long?
Long, before you answer, do you have to go pick up Max?
I do have
It's your time. Sorry, I thought you said 11.
I was looking at you and I was like, I think you have to go get.
I had 11:15 in my thing, where this is the last question anyway. So that's, hey, this is real life, guys.
Who's your celebrity, Long? Throw out a celebrity.
Throw out a celebrity.
My answer, I'm not a Swiftie, but I would say Taylor Swift.
Like her.
She has such a huge reach.
Oh.
She's
happily.
I do too.
I
love that too. So you're free to go pick up Max, and I'm assuming and hoping he's doing well and is in a supportive environment. And the other quick thing I wanted to add about that is, when you've pulled together your families, activities where they have lost a loved one, and Max is with other kids who have also lost a loved one, it is a beautiful thing that you're doing for him as well, because it builds community for him. And I love that you're spearheading that or participating in it and doing it. It means a lot, because you can be there for others and others can be there for you and for him. So it was just a pleasure being with you, Long, and thank you. And go pick up Max. I don't want you to be late.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you. We got started a little bit late. So, Crystal, who's your influencer or celebrity?
I would have to say Robin Roberts from the Today Show.
I love her. Oh, she's amazing. She would be terrific. Keep going.
She had a rough, hard, long journey.
Yes, she did.
And she recently got married, so I know that was, something spectacular in her life, and just to live long enough to experience that and do that. So
yeah,
I would have to say her.
She'd be great. And she does come out publicly and talk about her battle. And I think, being in as a journalist in that space, well, Katie Couric too, I guess, it can, and as a female, it can mar you. People can be like, oh, I can't rely on you, or I don't know that you'll be here. And they powered through, and she particularly, because she had such a long battle and will continue to. And so that's a wonderful choice.
I would be remiss not to mention her, because she's a Massachusetts native, and we really are trying and hoping that our schedules work. But Ellen Hildebrand is this beautiful author who's written all the books that people love reading in the summer about Nantucket, and she, huge amount. And when she was diagnosed in 2014, I think almost every single one of her books now has something to do with breast cancer, and she's willing to do all the ways breast cancer impacts people. And she uses her platform. I think almost every breast cancer organization that reaches out to her, she says yes. So it's been a scheduling issue more than anything, but we're hoping that she'll dance in New England in 2024, because she is a model of somebody who had this platform, and Robin and Katie, they continue to talk about it, which is really wonderful.
It's wonderful. I think when people decide to pull back the curtain for their own experience, again, we have them on pedestals for what they've accomplished, and we haven't recognized some of the personal battles that they have gone through, and when they share that, it's meaningful to those of us who are, fighting, continue to fight too. So I really appreciate that. What is the best way for people to reach you? How do people find out about you?
Yeah, so our website, runway4recovery.org, ORG, has lots of different ways that you can get involved. It's got volunteer forms, it's got host a runway event. It has, join our mailing list. It has my contact information. So that's a really nice way to reach out to us. And then just to get a sense of who we are, we have an amazing social media manager, and she does a wonderful job on our Instagram and Facebook. So Runway4Recovery is our Instagram handle. And we're sharing our videos from the show. We're sharing this. Every single model who walks on our runway gets a blog written about them. So you can go back and find all their stories and personal pictures. And it's a really wonderful way to get a sense of who we are.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it also is, because I've explored it and really loved looking at everything. It also is such a wonderful way to carry on the idea of not just a legacy in terms of both your mom and the individuals who chose to do legacy videos, but these are milestones for people. So their blog is there. It will be forever there. And so it is a way that when they continue to fight and remain well, that they can reflect on that particular time in their life. And I think that has a lot of significance for them and for their loved ones as well. So you're giving people a gift. It's really a gift. So any last comments from either of you before we close out the podcast?
I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. It's really important, and it's a great cause, and it's so needed, and just appreciate you and, praying for you and your journey.
As we grow to places, if you're listening to this and you're in Southern California, please don't hesitate to reach out. The reason for the success in New England that I didn't spend a lot of time talking about, although if you watch the recording, you'll hear me say at the very beginning, is we've been able to find people who are willing to give their specialty, their expertise, their professional services that allow our event, just like I was mentioning in the beginning, to remain this lower cost event. So it's a beautiful evening. People feel like they're at this beautiful, expensive gala, and our lighting is donated. Our florals are donated. Our wine is donated. The sound and movies, all the beautiful videos are donated. So if you're listening and you're in the Southern California area, or you're thinking you want to bring a runway show to your city, it starts with finding those vendors who want to give back. And there's a way for everybody to be involved. And we found that most of the people who are giving back to us have somebody in their family who's had breast cancer, if not themselves. So it's been a real 17 years of community. Everyone's pitching in to make these happen, and it's a labor of love, but also just really cool intention from the businesses.
I love that you said that. And I just want to thank you for taking the time with me today to share about Runway4Recovery, the history, your personal stories, your family situations, the way in which you reach out, the organic nature in which it started, the beautiful way that it has touched people. And as I said in my opening, life-changing and life-saving, because I think part of a cure and being curative is building community. And everybody has their path of how they want to engage. And you have an openness about you that allows that to take hold and be organic in its own way. And I appreciate the time you gave me. And, as we say, one of our little taglines is from small and gutsy to big with impact. And I would say you're big with impact. And I love that. So thank you both.
Thank you.
We'll see you dance in California.
You'll see me dance in California. All of the Small and Gutsy episodes can be found on the Intrinsic Group website, which has a Small and Gutsy page. The opinions and viewpoints expressed by our guests are independent and do not reflect the position of Small and Gutsy. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the organizations we interview, so before you sign on to support or work for them, we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research them as well. We just want you to learn about the Small and Gutsy nonprofit and social impact organizational sector sector so they can spread their story and their impactful work. I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, the Intrinsic Group, my brilliant sound engineer and composer, Pavel Franson, my very talented graphic designer, Nate Addy. Please check out their bios on the Intrinsic website. My incredible board of directors, Tracy Brown, John Gatto, Lucy Mello, Serena Rajabian, who believed in me and this project enough so to sign on to support this effort, and all of the folks, friends, and family who have guided and inspired me. A very special thank you to my biggest champion, number one fan, and best friend, without whom none of this would be possible. Thanks, Mark Witkoff. Thanks for being there. And thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends, give us some stars, and write a review on wherever you listen to podcasts. From small and gutsy to big with impact, I'm Laura Witkoff. Thanks for listening.